DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health. At Merck Animal Health, we're shaping the future of animal health with pioneering science, connected technology, and insights-driven solutions to bring our customers an unparalleled portfolio of choices to improve cattle care and operational efficiency. We support you and your legacy by helping you meet the challenges of today with the innovations of tomorrow.
Folks, welcome to DocTalk. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to have a great show. We have Dusty Turner from Master Hand Milling joining us. We're going to talk about Distillers grains. We're going to talk about pelleting. We're going to talk about a lot of different manufacturing and how you can get this out to your cows, your calves, your stockers, and so on. We'll be right back.
They're here, they're hungry, and they can't be stopped with ivermectin. Choose Safeguard when you deworm your cattle to take out resistant parasites like brown stomach worm, Cooperia, Nematodirus, and others. With Safeguard's efficacy, you can kill more resistant worms in your cattle, so you don't leave potential on the table. Consult your veterinarian for the diagnosis and treatment of parasitism. Then bite back at safeguardworks.com.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and I'm here with a friend and colleague, Dusty Turner. Dusty is the owner of Master Hand Milling, and we've known each other for decades and worked together on projects, whether it's in the feed yards or whether it's in ethanol business, and now with your new venture, and just, it's not really a new venture, but different than what I've worked with you in the past. And so, welcome.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. So let's just start out because, we hear about distillers grains and dried distillers grains and gluten feed and all these things. And I don't know that we ever slow down to just say, hey, this is how we get it.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk us through from corn to the distillers pile?
Yeah.
How this kind of works?
Yeah, absolutely. The ethanol business hit us all hard and fast in the early 2000s. And, we were both in the feed yard working together out in Southwest Kansas, and this distillers thing come along. And I was fortunate enough to help start a company out there and work for him for 13 years and did not know a thing about distillers grain. But we learned it. And we ended up perfecting it because all the distillers in the country had a bullseye on Southwest Kansas, Texas Panhandle, where all the cattle are fed. So basically in a distiller's plant, you get three products. Mm-hmm. You bring in corn, you dry mill it, and you end up fermenting it, kind of like a big rumen in there. But you break down the grain to get to the starch. The starch then turns to sugar. And in that fermentation, you release CO2. And a lot of guys are capturing CO2 now for beverage or for advanced oil sequestration. You hear a lot of that going on. Then when the sugar is turned into ethanol, you take it through distillation. And there, the ethanol is evaporated off, what we call whole stillage. Whole stillage is what we end up with in our cattle rations. And when it started in early 2000s, it was really high in fat, right? It was 12% fat, had 28 to 30% protein, and we could get it in various ways, either wet distillers, modified, or dry. Well, as times progressed, we now have a distiller's product that's one of the most sought after natural protein needs in any ration. You can go to about any place and somebody's feeding distillers in some way, shape, or form, but it's at a lot lower fat level, which the oil now is being extracted and used for, a lot of energy, a lot of this renewable diesel, a lot of the biogas or bioblends and those kind of things. But ultimately, we still have a really good feed ingredient that has gained a lot of presence in the, in the feeding industry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I mean, here comes the corn, and it's like running it through a rumen.
Yep.
But then you take the byproducts, and you're able to distill and make the ethanol. A lot of things, ethanol, biodiesel from the fat, and then what's left over is a great feed for cattle.
Well, absolutely. And when the ethanol business started, the cattle feeder thought it was a huge threat. And now, if we really look back, the cattle feeders become very dependent on the ethanol industry because of the feedstock.
Well, it's a great segue. Now we know where it's from. Next, we're going to come back and we'll talk with Dusty about how he's pelleted it to get it to other sources and get it out in the industry. You're watching DocTalk, and we're glad you joined us.
This Cattle Intel is brought to you by Neogen.
Hello there, Dr. Nick Wagner, Professional Services Veterinarian with Neogen, and just wanted to take some time today to mention an important point about water quality. And when we look at providing quality water to our cattle, whether that's in a pasture setting or a feedlot setting, we want to make sure that we're looking at what does quality water look like. You want it free from any potential contaminants. You want it to be at a pH that's between 6.8 and 8 to keep it at a neutral so that you don't cause any problems with rumen health. You want it to basically be free of minerals like nitrates and sulfates that could potentially be detrimental at certain levels to cattle that could cause health issues, but also the other piece of it with minerals and contaminants that could also be a challenge is it could just affect the overall palatability of that water source. And if it's not palatable to cattle, they're not going to drink it. And so if you're looking at getting your water tested, you can reach out in a lot of cases to your extension services in your area, and they will put you in contact with a laboratory that you can send a water sample to. They'll provide you analysis back, and then you can discuss that with your veterinarian if changes are needed to ensure the best health and welfare for your cattle.
Thanks for watching Cattle Intel by Neogen.
John McCurry with McCurry Angus Ranch. We are standing right now in our fall yearling bull pen. On our first initial run with Ferropees, we commingled 3 separate different pens of bulls together for the ones that's in the sale and had virtually no issues with these cattle in terms of commingling them and their attitudes towards each other. Didn't have the riding and the fighting that we normally can experience. And I would highly recommend us using Ferropees and would recommend that to anybody else looking to do so.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dusty Turner. Dusty owns Master Hand Milling, and this company kind of evolved, right? After you started to see in your involvement in the ethanol business, a next level or a next step for the distillers.
Sure. Well, you know how your past kind of defined your future, and being a part of the cattle feeding industry and then learning how to make good distillers and know good distillers from bad distillers, you know, there was always an opportunity to get distillers further up the supply chain, right? Get it into the hands of these stocker operators, the cow-calf guy, because these ranchers have never had the opportunity to feed this palatable of feed to start with and this much energy. You know, we're always so focused on protein on the ranch, and we really never had an ingredient to know what energy value was worth on the ranch. And so we tried for several years to pelletize DDG, but it's next to impossible with the high level of fat through a traditional pellet mill. And so I don't know, probably probably 2013, 14, we ran across an extrusion technology. And that extrusion technology was able to process and hold that cube together and densify it to where it would be a very durable product. And by sheer accident, when we did that, we would end up breaking fiber down, releasing more fat, and turning a product into normally a 60, say 5% TDN into 83 or 4% TDN as fed.
Yeah.
So you know what that does. That just means you feed less of it.
Yeah, right. And so as you perfected the pellet, then that allows you to ship it, right? I mean, or to get it, I mean, out to people in a more usable fashion. Yeah,
absolutely. Then it just becomes a replacement for your traditional range cube, or into a grow yard that's tired of mixing feed and working on their mixer and their truck breaking down and all that kind of stuff. You can feed 2 to 3 to 4 pounds a day in any roughage and still get the same value and gains that you're doing by mixing and grinding hay and silage and all those kind of things. And we're able to ship it a lot farther and be competitive on a cost per head per day.
So where's, the kind of the region now that you work with? Is it everywhere? Or is it?
No, right now it's obviously freight's a limiting factor, and it's pretty much in the central part of the U.S. Basically, obviously our facilities in Nebraska, but we operate in Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and then the fringes of Colorado and Missouri.
But some of that may be changing in the future as you develop the equipment in other places, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, with this product, there's been a lot of adoption of that technology, and a lot of people are getting the benefits of it. And so with that, we're spreading out, we're finding areas that are in need of this product, and focusing in some of those areas where we can better benefit the producer.
Perfect. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Dusty Turner from Master Hand Milling more about where we're using this, how we're using this in the industry. You're watching DocTalk, and we're sure glad that you joined us.
Plant the seeds of financial security today with United Patriot Coins Precious Metal Starter Pack, the Patriot Pack. Exclusive offer for our DocTalk family. Call now and secure your financial future. Strengthen your roots with silver and gold. Call United Patriot Coin today and ask for the DocTalk special offer.
When it comes to treating BRD, you want a product that you can count on to get the job done at an affordable price. Macrocin by Bimeda delivers on both. A straight shooting, no BS tulathromycin that does what it's supposed to do. End of story. You don't need to take our word for it though. Go to macrocin.com for customer testimonials and head-to-head trial results. For your cattle and your bottom line, choose Macrocin.
In the livestock industry, castration is a common practice to ensure proper herd management. All methods are painful, regardless of the age of the animal. At Solvit, we could not ignore the clear industry need for better castration solutions. So we developed Lidoband, a novel lidocaine-impregnated elastrator, addressing the pain associated with band castration. It provides local anesthesia throughout the castration process. Lidoband, a small device that can make a big difference.
Ranchers, looking to elevate your pasture management game? Turn to Heinen Brothers for expert aerial application. With state-of-the-art equipment and seasoned pilots, we deliver precision treatments right to your fields. From fertilizers to herbicides, Heinen Brothers has your pasture covered. Visit HeinenBrosAg.com to learn more.
When the ones who have your heart need your help, count on us for everything they deserve, delivered fast. We'll work hard for you so you can work hard for your dreams.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dusty Turner. Dusty is a longtime friend and colleague. We have worked together on many projects, heck of a feedlot manager, and had a lot of fun back in the day in Southwest Kansas working together. Talk a little bit about, the Master Hand Milling product and kind of where it has been, where the adaptation and the people that you've helped with this.
Yeah. So, early on, the real early adopters of this DDG cube was a cow-calf guy, right? The majority of these ranchers at some point in time, whether it be driven by weather, drought, or winter, supplement like a range cube, right? Cake and grass. You've heard that a lot. And a lot of people call it cake, cube, whatever it is. But essentially, the Sandhills of Nebraska were fortunate enough to be some of the early adopters. A lot of the production was up there by them. And they were just blown away by feeding, 2 pounds of cube to a 1,400-pound mama cow. The level of condition they could maintain those cows, even in the worst of times up in Nebraska. And me being from the feed yard industry, I've just always had a passion for the stalker cow. Like I love the whole, straightening out calves, grazing them, preconditioning them, bringing them into the feed yard, and just finding out how well and fine-tuned we can create that animal from the time if we get that nutritional plane up as quick as possible in the preconditioning phase on grass. even that real thin yearling doesn't necessarily mean he's the most valuable product out there. They can be so deficient nutritionally that it's almost an issue when they come into the feed yard. So we've done about 5 years of trials with Oklahoma State, perfecting the level of nutrition that we can bring those cattle up on grass and create an animal that's not only beneficial to the rancher, but to the feed yard or the person retaining ownership, because they're not used up. All we're doing is growing pure muscle and bone. And that's what's been the most exciting thing is we can start conditioning that carcass rather than just looking at putting on weight. We're actually growing a carcass now on grass and bringing that animal into the feed yard where they hit the ground running, because guess what? They were fed Distillers on grass and they come into a feed yard, they're feeding Distillers there.
Yeah, it's familiar to them. They
Yep.
smell it, they taste it, they know it. This is what
Yep.
I've been raised on.
Yep.
How do you use it as far as how much and some of those different things in different settings?
So we've tested that product 10 ways to Sunday. And about the best way that you can do it is starting out about, on average, a pound per head per day. But I look at it on pounds per week, because a pound of adjustment per week is a big deal. You don't need to move this per head per day. It's pounds per week. And we look at feeding 7 to 10 pounds early on in the grazing period. And then as the grass starts to deteriorate, we'll bump them up to 12, 14 to 21 pounds, and you can feed them 2 or 3 times a week and accomplish everything you want.
And part of that is because this isn't have a lot of starch in it.
No.
And so the negative associative effects are not there of, missing a day and coming back with the Distillers product to cattle that are on grass.
Right. Starch has one spot, and that's in the finishing phase of the feed yard.
Right.
Has no room for, in my opinion, for the energy source to be on grass.
It's perfect. It's very, very flexible to fit your schedule, but it really helps with the growth of the calves. When we come back, we're going to dive into what's the future look like with some of the different products and supplements for cattle out on pasture or backgrounders with Dusty Turner. We'll be right back. Hey folks, for your firearm and ammo needs, for gun safes and much, much more, and to have it personalized, come visit us at United Patriot Supply outside of Seneca, Kansas. You can also visit us online at unitedpatriotsupply.com. Be sure to say that Dr. Dan and DocTalk sent you, and we'll see you down the road.
Hey, I'm Clark Victory. I grew up right here on this little ranch near Chelsea, Oklahoma. Roped and ranched all my life. A few years ago, I had an injury that created what they call a frozen shoulder. And after speaking with the surgeon in Tulsa, he told me that he could make my shoulder better if he did surgery, but he absolutely couldn't fix it. And I called Kansas Regenerative Medical Center. I did the stem cell replacement. By 12:30, my wife and I had lunch and was driving back to Chelsea. We work around here. Some days we work pretty hard around here, and my right shoulder doesn't get sore. It's like a baby's arm.
When you spot BRD in your cattle, that's your golden opportunity to target infection and its associated fever with a single dose of Resflor Gold, the industry standard dual therapy. To learn more, talk to your Merck Animal Health rep or your vet and see label at resflorgold.com. Animals intended for human consumption must not be slaughtered within 38 days of treatment. This product is not approved for use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, including dry dairy cows.
Success in the cattle business hinges on a lot of different people playing their part, from the vet to the cowboy and the nutritionist to the feed truck driver. You rely on them to get their job done right, and so do your cattle. Your expectations for the vaccines you use should be no different. Bimeta's cattle vaccines were developed and are made and sold by men and women in the cattle business. No smoke and mirrors, just real-world protection that you can rely on. Go to bimetabiologicals.com to learn more.
One animal has this huge impact on your operation.
BVDV is one of the most costly bovine diseases, with losses of $15 to $88 per head.
The virus will actually cross the placenta and get into the fetus. As it's developing, its immune system will recognize that virus as it's supposed to be here. And so then that's where our persistently infected animals come from. they're going to shed that virus their entire life, and then it's going to impact your operation.
It is important to work with your local veterinarian and partner with IDEXX for the best solution for your operation.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dusty Turner. He's the owner of Master Hand Milling. And, we're just kind of talking about it offset, but, the reason why we do this and the reason why we do the show is there's a lot of people out there that could utilize these types of products, and they don't know where to get them or how they're made or where they're located. And obviously, this Distillers pellet, there's probably others out there, but, Dusty and I know each other, so I'm like, hey, will you come help explain some of this so that people can understand the opportunity.
Right.
The future, as we were describing, and I wanted to get this on the show, but the future is you can actually maybe start to add ingredients into a pellet to where here it is, the Distillers, but there are other components that could be added that are in 4 or 5 different bags that we won't utilize in a pellet if we don't have a micro machine or don't have some sort of advanced technology of putting a cup here or a cup there that could maybe benefit the cattle.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny. About 4 or 5 years ago, accidentally we run across some all natural components that were actually building a deer feed. And some of these ranchers had cattle, right? And they started feeding, the deer were so attracted to it, they started feeding some to their sick pens. And lo and behold, they were doing flip-flops. And they're like, what's in that? And so what we have done is created a product called Ignite.
Yeah.
And never have really, pushed it or done anything about it, but it started to come back around because let's face it, everybody's starting to be a little more concerned about where their food's coming from, what's in it, what's being fed, and I think that's going to be nothing but grow, right? And I think that's important. And as things evolve, I feel like if we can do things more naturally with fewer antibiotics and grow that immune system from the inside out, I think is very beneficial for all of us.
Yeah.
So we have taken a lot of really reputable, really good products out there and specially formulated a product that kind of attacks that immune system from all angles, from a prebiotic to a chelated mineral pack to a special blend of essential oils and botanicals that's coupled with a really soluble, warm water soluble calcium that kind of acts as a buffer for the stomach, because Distillers is naturally high in phosphorus, so we need to get that phosphorus calcium balance there. And because we've never put anything in our product, it's always been 100% natural Distillers.
Yeah. And so I think it makes sense as you continue to do research and look at different things that you can tie into a complete feed or a complete supplement. Obviously these types of things, the more we learn about them, the more we know how to adapt them.
That's right. And I think being able to formulate the certain products that are great on a standalone, you can put them together and make a product that people can really hang their hat on, especially when you've got a $2,000 3-weight, and be able to know that if I feed this calf for 21 days, I'm going to protect my investment.
Yeah. Well, I think that, at the end of the day, it's just another way of carrying forward opportunities for underserved independent cattlemen.
Yep.
And you've always been looking out for them, and I know that's your passion. I'm glad the deer that you were feeding the deer and the cattle went and ate it out of the deer feeder and shows how to do it. But appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for everything, and thank you for watching DocTalk. Remember, if you want to find us, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. Always work with your local veterinarian. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson with Dusty Turner, and we'll see you down the road.
At Merck Animal Health, we support you and your legacy by helping you meet the challenges of today with the innovations of tomorrow.
Time is money on the farm, and your cows are less productive when they're stressed. The Alertus on-farm test from IDEXX allows you to quickly test cowside and identify open or pregnant cows within minutes on your schedule in the parlor, barn, or chute. It's more efficient for your farm, very simple to use, and puts you in control. With minimal training and reliable, fast results, sample-based pregnancy testing is better for beef and dairy producers. Learn more at idexcom/DocTalk.